It was supposed to be a simple evening. I had just wrapped up a late meeting and decided to stop by a local bar for a quick drink before heading home. Amanda, my wife of 8 years, had told me earlier that she'd be out with her coworkers for a team dinner. She'd been distant lately, but I attributed it to the relentless pressure of her demanding job. The bar was dimly lit, buzzing with the usual chatter of strangers unwinding after a long day. I ordered my usual whiskey on the rocks and sat at the counter, scrolling aimlessly on my phone. I was halfway through my drink when I heard it, her laugh. Amanda has this unmistakable laugh, one that used to light up every room we walked into. I froze, gripping my glass a little tighter, my heart racing as I turned toward the sound, praying I was imagining it. There she was, sitting in a booth near the corner, her face glowing with a smile I hadn't seen in months. But it wasn't me who brought it out. Across from her sat a man I didn't recognize, tall, sharply dressed, and leaning in way too close. I watched, feeling like I was in a trance, as Amanda rested her hand on his arm, laughing at something he said. It wasn't just friendly, it was intimate, the kind of look she used to reserve only for me. My stomach churned, and my legs felt like lead, but I forced myself to stand. I couldn't just sit there like a coward. I had to confront this head-on. As I approached their table, the world around me seemed to blur. My heart pounded in my chest, and every step felt heavier than the last. When I was close enough to cast a shadow over their booth, Amanda looked up and froze. Her smile vanished instantly, replaced by an expression I couldn't quite read: shock, guilt, maybe even fear. "Jake," she stammered, her voice trembling just slightly. The man beside her looked between us, confused but calm. He didn't move, didn't flinch. Amanda, however, shifted uncomfortably, as if trying to shield herself from my gaze. I took a deep breath, trying to steady the storm raging inside me. Without a word, I reached for my wedding ring, sliding it off my finger. I could feel the weight of the years we'd spent together, the promises we made, the love I thought we shared. I held the ring tightly in my hand, squeezing it so hard that it dug into my palm. Then I placed it on the table in front of her. "I think you'll find more use for this than I will," I said, my voice steady but cold. Amanda's eyes widened, her face turning pale. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. The man beside her stayed silent, his calm demeanor now tinged with unease. I turned on my heel and walked out of the bar, leaving behind the sound of her panicked voice calling my name. I didn't look back. I couldn't. That moment was the beginning of the end, and, in a way, the beginning of something entirely new. The cool night air hit me like a slap to the face as I stepped out of the bar. My chest felt tight, my thoughts racing in every direction. I couldn't believe what I had just seen. Amanda, my wife, my partner, my everything, was sitting in that booth with another man as if she didn't have a care in the world, as if I didn't exist. I got into my car, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. My wedding ring, now gone from my finger, felt like it had left a phantom weight behind. I sat there, staring blankly at the dashboard, trying to piece together what had just happened. How long had this been going on? How many nights had I spent working late, trusting that Amanda was doing the same, while she was off with him? The thought made my stomach churn. I needed answers, but I wasn't ready to face her again, not yet. Instead, I drove aimlessly through the city, the streets blurring past as I tried to calm the storm inside me. Every memory of our life together played like a cruel slideshow in my mind. Our wedding day, the vacations, the late-night talks where we promised each other forever. How much of it had been a lie? After what felt like hours, I found myself parked outside our house. The lights were off, and the driveway was empty. She hadn't come home yet. I wasn't sure if that was a relief or another dagger to the heart. I sat there, debating whether to go inside or keep driving, when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Amanda. "Jake, please come home. We need to talk." Talk? What was there to talk about? I had seen everything I needed to see. Still, a part of me, maybe the part that hadn't fully accepted the betrayal, wanted to hear what she had to say. I wasn't sure if I was looking for an explanation, an apology, or something else entirely. When I finally walked through the front door, the silence of the house was deafening. Amanda was sitting on the couch, her face pale and tear-streaked. She looked up at me, her eyes searching mine for something. Maybe forgiveness, maybe understanding. She wouldn't find either. "I didn't want you to find out like this," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The audacity of her words hit me like a freight train. I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head. Oh, really? How exactly did you want me to find out, Amanda? Did you plan on telling me? Or were you just going to keep sneaking around behind my back? She flinched at my tone, but didn't look away. It's not what you think, Jake. Not what I think. I snapped, my voice rising. I saw you, Amanda. I saw you with him. You were laughing, touching his arm, looking at him the way you used to look at me. Don't insult my intelligence by pretending it was innocent. She opened her mouth to respond, but hesitated, as if trying to choose her words carefully. Finally, she said, "It's complicated." That word made my blood boil. "You're damn right it's complicated," I said, stepping closer. "You're my wife, you're supposed to be faithful. But instead, you're out there with another man while I'm here working my ass off to give us a good life. So tell me, Amanda, what's so complicated about that?" Her tears started flowing again, but I felt no sympathy. She had made her choices, and now she had to face the consequences. "I didn't mean for this to happen," she said, her voice cracking. It just happened. I was feeling lonely, and he was there, and— Stop, I interrupted, holding up a hand. "I don't want to hear your excuses. Feeling lonely? That's what you're going with. Do you have any idea how many nights I felt lonely because you've been distant, secretive, and cold? But you don't see me running off to some bar to find comfort in another man's arms." She didn't respond. Instead, she buried her face in her hands, sobbing. Part of me wanted to comfort her, to tell her we'd figure it out, but I couldn't. "Not this time. I need some time to think," I said finally, my voice steady despite the chaos inside me. "I can't do this right now." Without waiting for her response, I turned and walked out of the house. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew one thing for sure. My life would never be the same. I drove aimlessly again, the city lights blurring into streaks as I tried to process what Amanda had said. It just happened. What kind of excuse was that? Betrayal wasn't something that just happens. It's deliberate. It's planned. It's the result of choices she made without a second thought about me. Eventually, I pulled into the parking lot of a 24-hour diner. It was one of those places we used to go to late at night when we first started dating, back when everything felt easy, back when I actually believed in forever. The irony wasn't lost on me as I ordered a coffee I didn't even want, just so I'd have something to do with my hands. I couldn't stop replaying the night in my head. Her laugh, the way she looked at him, the way she looked at me when she saw me standing there, like she'd been caught, but didn't regret it. My hands clenched around the coffee cup, the cheap ceramic digging into my skin. I needed answers, real answers, not the vague excuses she'd given me back at the house. And deep down, I knew she wasn't going to volunteer them. If I wanted the truth, I'd have to find it myself. I pulled out my phone and did something I never thought I'd do. I started going through Amanda's social media, her Instagram, her Facebook, her texts, anything that might give me a clue. At first, it was nothing, just the usual pictures and posts about work, friends, and vacations. But then I found something that made my stomach drop. A photo she posted a few weeks ago. It was of a group of people at some corporate event, all smiling and holding drinks. And there he was, the man from the bar, standing right next to her. His arm was draped casually over her shoulders, his grin far too familiar. The caption read, "Such a fun night with my amazing team. Couldn't do it without these guys." I stared at the photo, the puzzle pieces clicking into place. He wasn't some random guy she met at the bar. He was a coworker, someone she saw every day, someone she'd probably been seeing long before tonight. My heart raced as I scrolled further back, looking for more clues. And that's when I found the messages. They weren't obvious. Amanda was smart enough not to leave a paper trail in plain sight. But there were subtle comments on her posts from him, little inside jokes and compliments that seemed innocent on the surface, but took on a whole new meaning now. I kept digging, and eventually, I found the final nail in the coffin, a string of private messages between them. Him. "Last night was amazing. Can't stop thinking about you." Amanda. "Me too. I don't know how much longer I can keep this a secret. I hate lying to him." Him. "Just a little longer. I'll make it worth it. You know you're the only one I want." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. My suspicions weren't just paranoia, they were fact. She'd been lying to me for months, maybe longer, and not just lying. She'd been building a whole other life behind my back. I didn't know what hurt more, the betrayal itself or the fact that she didn't even seem to care enough to cover her tracks. By the time I left the diner, it was nearly dawn. My mind was racing with questions. How long had this been going on? How far had it gone? And what was I supposed to do now? As I drove back home, I realized there was no going back from this. The life I thought I had was gone, shattered into a million pieces, and the woman I thought I knew was a stranger. When I got home, Amanda was asleep on the couch, still in the clothes she'd worn to the bar. Her face was peaceful, almost angelic, as if she hadn't just destroyed everything we'd built together. I stood there for a moment, staring at her, wondering how someone who once meant everything to me could become the source of so much pain. Then I turned and went upstairs, leaving her to sleep off whatever guilt, or lack thereof, she was feeling. That morning, I made a decision. If she wanted to play games, I'd play too. But I wasn't going to be the clueless husband anymore. I was going to find out every detail of her betrayal, no matter how much it hurt, because if this marriage was over, I was going to make damn sure I walked away on my terms. The next morning, the house felt eerily quiet. Amanda was still asleep on the couch when I went downstairs, her phone clutched in her hand. The sight of her lying there, so unaware, so unbothered, made my blood boil. I had spent the entire night replaying her betrayal in my head, while she'd apparently been dreaming peacefully. I brewed a pot of coffee, the mundane task grounding me in the reality of what needed to happen next. Confronting her outright hadn't worked. If anything, it gave her more room to spin her lies and play the victim. No, I needed to be smarter. If I wanted to truly understand how deep this betrayal ran, I had to approach it carefully, methodically. My first move was Amanda's phone. I had never been the type to snoop before. I believed in trust, or at least I used to. But after last night, all bets were off. I waited until I heard her stir and head to the bathroom. Then I grabbed her phone and quickly entered the passcode. The messages confirmed what I already knew, but they also revealed something far worse. Him, excited for our weekend getaway. I've got everything planned. Can't wait to have you all to myself. Amanda, me too. I need this. Jake's been so distracted lately, he won't even notice I'm gone. I stared at the screen, my hands trembling. A weekend getaway. She had planned to disappear with this man, leaving me behind to play the fool. My mind raced with questions. Where were they going? When? And how had I missed all the signs? It didn't take long to find the answers. A quick scan of her calendar app revealed an entry for the upcoming weekend labeled Work Retreat. A lie, of course, but one I hadn't questioned until now. She had even booked a hotel room under her name. She wasn't just careless, she was brazen, as if she didn't think I'd ever catch on. But now I had everything I needed. I spent the next few hours gathering evidence. I downloaded her messages, took screenshots of her calendar, and even found the hotel reservation. By the time Amanda came downstairs, I had a folder full of proof of her betrayal, her lies, her utter disregard for me. Morning, she said casually, as if nothing had happened. Her tone was light, almost cheerful, and it made my skin crawl. Morning, I replied, forcing my voice to stay calm. I couldn't let her know what I'd found, not yet. She poured herself a cup of coffee and sat across from me at the kitchen table, scrolling through her phone. I wondered if she was texting him right now, planning their little escape. The thought made my chest tighten, but I pushed it down. I needed to keep my cool if I wanted to pull this off. I was thinking, I said, breaking the silence. Maybe we should do something together this weekend, just the two of us. It feels like we haven't spent much time together lately. Amanda froze for a split second, her eyes flickering up to meet mine. It was subtle, but I caught it. She wasn't expecting that. This weekend, she asked, her voice carefully neutral. Yeah, I said, keeping my tone light. We could drive up to the cabin, get away from everything for a couple of days. What do you think? She hesitated, and I could almost see the gears turning in her head as she scrambled for an excuse. I don't know, Jake. I've got that work retreat, remember? It's important, right? I said, nodding as if I believed her. Of course. Maybe another time. The relief on her face was obvious, and it took everything in me not to lash out right then and there. But I held my tongue. This wasn't the time for confrontation. I had a plan now, and I was going to see it through. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Amanda went about her usual routine, completely unaware that I was watching her every move. Every smile she gave me, every casual comment, felt like a knife twisting in my gut. That evening, when she went to bed early, claiming she was exhausted, I knew it was because she wanted to text him without me around. I waited until I heard her snoring softly, then slipped downstairs and pulled out the folder of evidence I had gathered. Tomorrow, I would take the next step. I wasn't just going to confront Amanda, I was going to expose her. But I needed to do it in a way that left no room for her lies, no space for her to manipulate the narrative. She thought she was clever, thought she could outsmart me. But she didn't realize that I wasn't the clueless husband she took me for, not anymore. By the time the sun rose, I had a plan. And Amanda, she had no idea what was coming. The next morning, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in weeks. Amanda's betrayal had cut deep, but now I had something else driving me. Purpose. I wasn't going to let her lies define me or our marriage anymore. Today was the day I started taking control. Amanda was in the kitchen when I came downstairs, humming to herself as she made coffee. Her carefree demeanor was nauseating, given everything I now knew. She turned and smiled at me, and for a split second, I wondered how she could look me in the eye after what she'd done. "Morning," she said, handing me a cup. "Morning," I replied, my voice steady. I couldn't let her suspect anything, not yet. I sat at the table, pretending to scroll through my phone, while she went on about her plans for the day. She mentioned work meetings, errands, and some vague details about her upcoming retreat. I nodded along, acting like the same oblivious husband she thought I was. But as soon as she left for work, I got to work. The first thing I did was call the hotel where she and her lover were planning to stay. I posed as Amanda's assistant, claiming I needed to confirm the reservation details. It was easier than I expected. The receptionist, clearly busy, rattled off the check-in time, room number, and even the amenities they'd booked, a luxury suite with a balcony view. How thoughtful of him. Next, I called my friend Marcus, who worked as a private investigator. I hadn't told anyone about Amanda's betrayal yet, not even my closest friends, but Marcus was someone I trusted implicitly. He didn't ask too many questions when I explained the situation, just told me he'd meet me later that day to go over my options. By the time Amanda came home that evening, I had everything in place. Marcus had agreed to follow her to the hotel and document everything. Photos, videos, timestamps. I wanted undeniable proof, not just for my own peace of mind, but for what I had planned next. "Hey, you're home early," she said as she walked through the door, her voice light and casual. "Yeah, I wrapped up work early today," I said, forcing a smile. "Thought I'd relax a bit." She nodded, tossing her bag onto the couch. "I'm starving. Want to order in tonight?" "Sure," I said, playing along. The thought of sharing a meal with her made me sick, but I needed to keep up appearances. We spent the evening like nothing was wrong, eating takeout, watching TV, and chatting about mundane things. She didn't suspect a thing, and it took every ounce of self-control not to confront her then and there. But I reminded myself that patience was key. When she finally went to bed, I stayed up, reviewing everything Marcus had sent me. He'd managed to pull up background information on the man she was seeing, a senior executive at her company, of course, married with kids. Because why wouldn't he be? The hypocrisy was staggering. As I stared at the photos of them together, laughing, holding hands, looking like a couple without a care in the world, I felt something shift inside me. The sadness, the pain, the confusion, it was all still there, but it was overshadowed by something else now: determination. The next morning, Amanda left early for her work retreat. She kissed me on the cheek before she walked out the door, and I had to fight the urge to recoil. As soon as she was gone, I called Marcus and told him it was time. He followed her to the hotel, just as we planned, and kept me updated in real time. "Marcus, text, she just checked in. The guy's here too. Same room, just like you said." Me, text, "Get everything. I want this airtight." Marcus, text, "Don't worry, I've got it covered." While Marcus did his part, I focused on mine. I printed out every piece of evidence I had: the messages, the photos, the hotel reservation. I even wrote a letter to Amanda, detailing everything I knew and how I felt about it. It wasn't for her benefit, it was for mine. I needed her to know that I wasn't just some clueless, passive bystander in her twisted little game. By the time Marcus sent me the final set of photos, I was ready. That evening, I packed up all of Amanda's things: her clothes, her shoes, her jewelry. Everything that was hers went into boxes. I left them neatly stacked by the front door, along with the folder of evidence and the letter. When I was done, I sat on the couch, waiting for her to come home. My heart was pounding, But it wasn't fear anymore. It was anticipation. Around midnight, I heard her car pull into the driveway. A moment later, the front door opened, and there she was, her hair slightly messy, her face flushed. She froze when she saw the boxes, her eyes darting to me and then to the folder on top of the stack. "Jake," she said, her voice trembling. "What's going on?" I stood, walking over to her slowly. "I think you know exactly what's going on, Amanda." Her eyes widened, and for the first time, I saw real fear on her face. Not guilt, not regret, just fear. "Sit down," I said, my voice cold and steady. "We need to talk." She didn't move at first, but when I crossed my arms and stared her down, she finally obeyed, sinking onto the couch. I grabbed the folder and tossed it onto the coffee table in front of her. "Open it," I said. Her hands shook as she flipped it open, her face growing paler with each page she turned. By the time she reached the last photo, tears were streaming down her cheeks. "Jake," she started, but I held up a hand to silence her. "Save it," I said, my voice cutting through the air like a knife. "You've already said enough." For the first time in weeks, I felt like I had the upper hand, and I wasn't about to let it go. Amanda sat on the couch, clutching the folder like it was some kind of lifeline. Her face was pale, her eyes darting between me and the damning evidence in her hands. She opened her mouth to speak, but no sound came out. It was as if all the lies she'd been telling for months had suddenly run dry. I stood over her, my arms crossed, and waited. I wanted her to squirm, to feel the weight of what she'd done. No more excuses, no more playing dumb. "Start talking," I said finally, my voice calm but sharp enough to cut glass. "Jake, I don't even know where to begin," she stammered, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Try the truth," I shot back. "It's a good place to start. And don't waste my time with it just happened. I've heard that crap already." She wiped her face with trembling hands, her breathing uneven. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen, I swear, Jake. It was just, things have been so hard between us lately, and I was feeling so alone." Don't," I interrupted, my voice rising. "Don't you dare try to blame me for this. You had a choice, Amanda. You could have talked to me, worked through whatever hard things you think we were going through. Instead, you decided to crawl into bed with another man. That's on you." Her sobs grew louder, but I felt nothing. The tears didn't move me anymore. They weren't tears of regret. They were tears of being caught. "I never stopped loving you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I was stupid, Jake. I made a mistake." I laughed bitterly, shaking my head. "A mistake? Is that what we're calling it now? Mistakes are spilling coffee on the carpet or forgetting an anniversary. This was a calculated betrayal. You lied to me. You lied to my face while you were planning weekends away with him. That's not a mistake, Amanda. That's who you are." She flinched at my words, but I didn't care. I needed her to feel every ounce of pain she caused me. "I'll do whatever it takes to fix this," she said, her voice trembling. "Counseling, therapy, anything. I'll quit my job. I'll block him. I'll do whatever you want, Jake. Just don't throw us away." I stared at her, my jaw clenched so tightly it hurt. "You think I'm the one throwing us away? You already did that the moment you let him into your life, Amanda. You killed this marriage the second you decided I wasn't enough." Her tears turned into full-blown sobs as she buried her face in her hands. I let her cry, standing there silently as I processed what to do next. When she finally looked up at me, her eyes red and swollen, she said, "Please, Jake, just tell me what you want me to do. I'll do anything." I leaned down, locking eyes with her so she could see the resolve in mine. "What I want," I said slowly, "is for you to pack your things and leave tonight. This marriage is over." Her face crumpled, and she shook her head violently. "No, Jake, please don't do this. We can fix it. I'll make it right, I promise." "You can't fix this," I said coldly. "You've already done too much damage. And honestly, I don't want to fix it. I don't want to spend the rest of my life wondering if you're lying to me again, wondering if you're sneaking around behind my back. I deserve better than that." Her sobs grew louder, but I stayed firm. This wasn't just about her betrayal. It was about reclaiming my dignity. "I've already packed your things," I said, motioning toward the boxes by the door. "You can take them and go wherever you want, but you're not staying here." Amanda stood slowly, her legs shaky, and glanced at the boxes. "Jake, I don't have anywhere to go," she said, her voice barely audible. You should have thought about that before you decided to destroy our marriage. I replied, my tone icy. Maybe your lover has room for you. Her face twisted in a mixture of pain and anger, but she didn't argue. She knew she'd lost. I watched as she gathered her things, her movements slow and deliberate. When she finally turned to face me, clutching the last of her belongings, she said, I know you hate me right now, but I do love you, Jake. I always have. Don't, I said sharply. Don't cheapen the word love by throwing it around now. Love doesn't do what you did. It doesn't lie. It doesn't betray. And it sure as hell doesn't sneak off to hotel rooms. She nodded, tears streaming down her face, and walked out the door without another word. When the door clicked shut behind her, the silence was deafening. I stood there for a long time, staring at the empty space where she'd just been. Part of me wanted to break down, to let the weight of everything crush me. But I didn't. Instead, I grabbed the folder of evidence and tossed it into the fireplace. The flames consumed the photos, the messages, the hotel reservation, all of it. This wasn't just the end of my marriage. It was the start of something new. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I could finally breathe. The silence in the house felt oppressive after Amanda left. I wandered through the rooms, every corner filled with reminders of our life together. The wedding photo on the mantel, the throw blanket she loved, even the coffee mug she always used. It all felt like it belonged to someone else now. I grabbed a box and started packing away anything that reminded me of her. The photos, her favorite books, the little trinkets we'd collected over the years. I couldn't bring myself to throw them out yet, but I needed them gone, out of sight, out of mind. When I was done, I sat on the couch, exhausted. The weight of what had just happened finally started to sink in. This wasn't just a fight or a temporary separation. This was the end. The woman I loved, trusted, and built a life with was gone, not just physically, but emotionally too. I thought I'd feel relief, maybe even satisfaction, but all I felt was emptiness, the kind of emptiness that seeps into your bones and makes you question everything. Was it me? Could I have done something differently? Or was this always who she was, and I was just too blind to see it? As the hours dragged on, I realized something important. I couldn't let her betrayal define me. I had a choice now. I could either let this break me, or I could use it as a chance to rebuild, better, stronger, and without her lies weighing me down. I didn't know where to start, but for the first time in weeks, I felt a spark of hope. The next morning, I woke up to an unfamiliar quiet. No Amanda bustling around. No morning arguments about who left the sink dirty, just peace. I decided to take the day off work and focus on myself for a change. I went for a long run, letting the crisp morning air clear my head. The rhythmic pounding of my feet against the pavement felt therapeutic, like I was leaving the pain behind with every step. When I got home, I made a list. It was simple. Change the locks, contact a lawyer, start therapy. I didn't want to just survive this. I wanted to come out the other side stronger. Amanda had taken so much from me, my trust, my sense of security, even my pride. But she couldn't take my future. That was mine to rebuild. By the end of the day, I had new locks on the doors and a consultation scheduled with a divorce attorney. It wasn't much, but it was a start. As I sat in my newly quiet home, sipping a cup of coffee, I realized something. I wasn't alone. I still had myself, my integrity, and the ability to move forward. And that, I decided, was more than enough. The road ahead wasn't going to be easy, but for the first time, I felt ready to face it. Whatever came next, I knew one thing for sure. I would never let anyone take my peace away again. The days following Amanda's departure were strange. The house, once filled with tension and unspoken words, now felt almost too quiet. But it was a good kind of quiet, a space where I could finally hear myself think. The first thing I did was block Amanda's number. She tried calling a few times, leaving voicemails filled with tearful apologies and pleas to talk. I didn't listen to a single one. I didn't need to. Her actions had said everything I needed to hear. I met with the divorce attorney 2 days later. The meeting was straightforward, clinical even. I handed over the folder of evidence Marcus had gathered and explained the situation. The attorney, a no-nonsense woman named Linda, assured me we had a strong case. "You've done your homework," she said, flipping through the photos and messages. "This will make the process a lot smoother." Smoother. The word felt almost absurd, considering how much pain was tied to all of this. But I nodded, grateful to have someone in my corner who knew what they were doing. As I left her office, I felt a small sense of relief. The wheels were in motion now. This wasn't just a betrayal anymore. It was a transition, one that I was determined to handle with as much dignity as I could muster. A week later, I found myself sitting in the same diner I had gone to the night I discovered Amanda's betrayal. This time, though, I wasn't there to wallow. I was there to celebrate. The divorce papers had been finalized earlier that day. Amanda didn't fight it. How could she, with all the evidence stacked against her? I walked out of the courthouse feeling lighter than I had in months. As I sipped my coffee, I thought about everything I had been through. The pain, the anger, the endless nights spent questioning myself. But now, sitting in that diner, I realized I wasn't the same man I had been before. I was stronger, wiser, and most importantly, free. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Healing never is. But for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful about the future. When I left the diner, I didn't look back. I didn't need to. The past was behind me, and my future was finally mine to create. And that, I decided, was worth every step of the journey.